Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for the 22nd of September 2015. What's going on in the Atlantic Basin today? Well, we have Ida still sitting out here in the open Atlantic, and then Invest area 97L off the North Carolina coast. And let's take a look at that. Pretty decent area of convection, low pressure sitting out here for sure over the Gulf Stream. No doubt about it, but it's overall non-tropical in nature, sort of a hybrid system. If this were wintertime, it would be a pretty good nor'easter trying to wrap up. And then it would probably head up the coast, whereas this is going to sag back to the south and west. And it's actually interesting, there's another little curious, very small little swirl right there. If I take the telestration away, you can see it. So just general unsettled cyclonic flow at the surface down here, low pressure, broad low pressure spinning away. We have showers and the occasional heavy rain band along the outer banks, cloud cover extending past the I-95 corridor, and then some pretty brisk winds down at the coast, building those seas up to high surf advisory levels over the next several days. Now, out in the tropical Atlantic, we still have Ida sitting out here. Interesting storm, all the cloud cover being blown back. Kind of a bad hair day for Ida. Very vigorous circulation, though, sitting in here. All kinds of other weather features around it, kind of bothering it. But once they abate and get out of the way, this should head up to the north somewhere in this column, if you will, this cone, and strengthen probably pretty significantly over the next few days. This is the model projection, and again, it's a pretty decent, considering the slow movement, it's a decent convergence of the models. It could be a lot worse where you have one here, one over here, something like that. And we've seen that in recent days, so at least it's starting to kind of come together as to what's going to happen with this system. Intensity-wise, I think Ida will be the one that scores the most ace points for the year, mainly because it's going to be around for a while, but also these models here indicating that it gets up to Category 1 or Category 2 intensity. And some of the other global models, the European, for example, recently suggesting that this becomes maybe a Category 3 out over the subtropical Atlantic, where water temperatures are certainly warm enough. And so this could sort of skew the ACE, the accumulated cyclone energy score, or the index for the season, higher than most people were predicting, but it's from this one system. It's kind of like somebody on a losing basketball team scoring 30 or 40 points. You say, wow, they did really good. Yeah, well, they only scored 45 points the whole night. One guy scored 40, the rest of the team scored 5, and they still lost 95 to 45. That's my basketball and hurricane analogy for you today. Now, the system in the southwest Atlantic Basin here, this is the Wave Watch model. Over the next several days, this high pressure coming out of Canada and the low pressure to the south, you get this sort of squeeze play gradient in between the two, and it's not going to be out of the realm of possibility that the areas from Cape Hatteras north to parts of southern New England even could have some high surf problems over the next few days, maybe some coastal flooding, and the potential for overwash from the ocean. In fact, if we look at the National Weather Service, this is just an example here out of Morehead City, North Carolina, and out on the Outer Banks in the Dare County region. We scroll down and look at the next few days, and you notice high surf advisory in effect through Wednesday night. And if you scroll further down, this is where you have some really great information. Click on the forecast discussion, and at the very bottom they have information here on tides and coastal flooding and how they're looking at 6 to 9 foot surf and the high threat of rip currents out in that region. But then this is the area here where they talk about the long term, that there's still some uncertainty in the models as to what happens with this low pressure area and the highs that keep coming out over New England and the northwest Atlantic Basin. And so the next few days could be very unsettled, and that could build those seas quite significantly here just offshore, sending some 6 to 9, maybe 9 to 12 foot breakers from time to time, anywhere from the tidewater of Virginia, the mid-Atlantic states, possibly down to the North Carolina Outer Banks. So if you have any interest in those areas, pay attention to that. Now, the next few weeks, we're getting close to where hurricane season is going to kind of wind down in terms of probabilistic chances of something happening. Just when you get later in the season, there's less of a chance of anything developing anyway. But it's interesting that the GFS here indicating a decent amplification of the MJO into phases 8 and 1, and even the European model suggesting a little bit of an amplification. First time I've noticed that in quite a while, probably due to the El Nino sort of keeping things stuck as being active in the Pacific. So the next 15 to 25 days could be busy with a couple of named storms here and there, maybe something in the Gulf of Mexico. That's where it's climatologically favored anyway, but nothing's jumping out just yet. Still a lot of what we say model noise, but nothing filtered out as being the signal to hone in on, so to speak, to kind of see what's going to happen. Nothing's really coming into focus, but the MJO becoming perhaps more favorable. The time of year we're in, you never know. The next 15 to 25 days could be rather active, if not from a name system with a high impact on it, or these sort of rogue, weaker systems that have a larger area affected with lower impact. It's just a mishmash of stuff. Anyway, that's it from me for today. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'm Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.